All right, hi everyone. We are looking at the first part of our notes today over parent functions, which is just looking at the equation, the name of the parent function, and the graph of the parent function. Now, some of these equations and names of parent functions you have seen before. We've worked with some of these already in the past, so some of these will sound and look familiar, hopefully. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so our first parent function that I'm hoping you guys will remember is the linear parent function, or the graph that looks like a line. So the linear equation is the y equals x. So every y number is exactly the same as every x number. So when we actually look at the graph of this equation, we start at 0, 0, your y-intercept, and it is slanted through our graph, starting from low to high, going up, left to right. Now, if we take a look at our next parent function, which is called our quadratic, that is our y equals x squared. This is the one that has the graph called the parabola. It's the one that looks similar to the U shape. So those two for sure are big ones you worked on in Algebra 1. We worked on those two a lot this year, and you'll be seeing those a lot more coming up in the days to come. Now, we just finished our unit on inverses, so we're also going to look at these basic parent functions and now their inverses. And the first inverse we're looking at is called the square root. The equation says y equals the square root of x, and since it is the inverse of the quadratic, all of those coordinates on that quadratic graph are going to get switched, which causes that U shape to go now over to the side. Now, looking at our next pair of parent functions is your cubic. When we have the equation over here, this is your y equals x to the third power, which means any number times itself 3 times. So 1 times 1 times 1, 2 times 2 times 2, 3 times 3 times 3. Any number times itself 3 times. The graph of this, like the other two, does start at 0, 0. The right side goes up like it did in the quadratic, but the left side now points downwards. Now, the inverse of this, called your cubed root, the equation y equals the cubed root of x. Same thing, it takes every number, every coordinate on the cubic and reverses them. So we are still starting at a 0, 0. But instead of pointing up really fast, it starts off and kind of looks like it's a little flat here, and then the left side turns and goes down. So it doesn't go up and down quite as fast as your cubic one does. Now, our last and final pair that we have here is our last pair of inverses. We have our exponential that is there, the y equals b to the x. In class, we looked at a times b to the x, but just for a parent function, we don't necessarily need the a. But this is one that was a little different. It started off really flat on one side, and then on the right, it shot up really quick. Now, the exponential graph itself has something very special with it because it has what's called an asymptote, which is an imaginary line that behaves like a boundary. And in this case, for the exponential, your asymptote is actually located on the x-axis. So that we can remember what that's called, this is an asymptote. That dashed line there is called an asymptote. And when we look at the inverse, the asymptote switches as well this time. So instead of the x-axis being our asymptote, now the y-axis is going to be our new asymptote for our last parent function here, which is called the logarithmic. So there's our new asymptote. Now, our graph is also going to change. Every coordinate that's on the original exponential graph is now going to switch places. And instead of flattening out as it goes to the right, this time the logarithmic flattens out as it goes downwards. So it'll get very, very close to that y-axis this time, but it is in fact not actually touching it because of that asymptote. So guys, I hope you enjoyed our little section here about the graphs of your parent functions. Please make sure to try out the activities, and then the second part of the notes will be later on after you've completed that part. Thanks for watching.